especially during the pandemic, quite a few people were um, wearing our shirts to because it was such a tough and challenging time, but we also had to work through it. And so you might not always be able to say what you're feeling when you're on a Zoom call, but you can wear a shirt that says change maker making change, or trust Black women, or dreamer doer, or do not touch the artwork, or stand with Black women. And people know how you feel about something. Our brand's goal is to just inspire action, to support self love, and to help build community through t-shirts. It's not the t-shirt, it's the person wearing it. We like to say that our clothes won't change the world, but the people wearing them are, and that they will. And I firmly believe that.
Hello, Dionna. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us on the show today. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And so I'll give our audience a quick intro. For those of you who don't know, Gianna is the CEO and co founder of The Creative Ladder, and also has a number of other ventures that she has up and running. So she has District of Clothing, which she's the CEO of, and also Dionna Dorsey Design. So, Gianna, you are wearing many hats, running many businesses all at once. And we know entrepreneurship is not glamorous. There's a lot to go that it goes on. And, running one business is a lot. And you're running three. So, and maybe even more that I don't even know about. But talk to us. Tell us how it is that you started down this entrepreneurial journey, and we'll dive in.
Certainly. Thanks again, Sam, for having me with you here this morning. I'm going to breeze through this because it's a rather long story, but I want to make sure that we get to all of your questions. But if you could venture back to 2008, I was a fashion designer living and working in New York City. And at that time, the Great Recession kicked off. I made it through about 17 rounds of layoffs. I eventually did get laid off. I stuck around New York City for one more year. And then I kind of woke up one day in 2009 and just said, what am I doing? What am I sitting around waiting for? It does not look like the fashion industry is going to come back in the way that I once knew it to be, at least. And I was blessed to have a home to go home to. That was Washington, D.C., which at the time was not suffering economically like the rest of the country. And, we had the newly elected Obamas in the White House. It was just a really exciting time. I came back home to Washington, D.C., and just assumed I would get hired quickly based on my experience, but that wasn't the case. Um, and so I couldn't get hired. I ended up hiring myself. That's what led to the development and the creation of Dionna Dorsey Design. That business it was really sort of going well. I had a prime client. I had a couple of other smaller clients, until my prime client went on a spending freeze. And then I kind of threw my hands up, like, okay, now what do I do? I'm one of those women entrepreneurs on CNN. And at this time, it's 2014, lots of my lots of my colleagues and folks that were in the same office space as we were often doing masterminds and listening to various different podcasts, and everyone was talking about multiple streams of income. I remember very specifically someone mentioning how much money Oprah made while drinking a cup of coffee, or while walking her dogs, or just by doing normal chores. And I thought, oh, that's right. I need multiple streams of income, especially now during these tough times with my prime client going on a spending freeze. And that led to the development of District of Clothing. I had an idea for some of the designs that you now know as the Dreamer Doer design and Change Maker Making Change designs. But they got tabled because of life, as we all know. Come November, I was really sort of struggling financially between having smaller clients and not having as consistent work. And I kind of remembered this idea, but again, you now know to be District of Clothing. Thanksgiving morning, I did a website and put a couple of things up and kind of sent a couple of notes to my friends who had much larger, at that time, larger Instagram followings. And District Clothing was officially launched a couple of weeks later at the Google Politico women rule event here in Washington D.C. We practically sold out. I said, "Whoa, this is probably something I should really actually consider." Um, and we're nearing 8 years, I think, since launch. This coming December, which is really very exciting. And I think through the work and the merging of Dionna Dorsey Design, the work that I was doing there for socially progressive causes and organizations, and the work through District of Clothing, some of our partnerships with Planned Parenthood, and some of our just visibility through the last several years of the business. I think that's what sort of led me to here. To be here as now the co-founder and the co-founder and CEO of the Creative Ladder, which is an amazing organization that's so near and dear to my heart. I couldn't be more excited to be at the helm and to be able to partner with such amazing partners, and as my co-founders, David Griner and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, that's it's so interesting. We'll have to deep dive into the creative ladder as well. But I think that your story is so timely. We spoke, I think we had our like official call like to, see if this would work out in the summer. And back in the summer, the economy was booming. Like things were great, right? It was going really well. I would say probably it's October now, so probably like at end of August, September, we start to hear the R word, recession, right? It's coming back. It's still kind of unknown. We see like even I think today I saw that, the jobs number is slowing down. So potentially the recession won't hit. But for women out there that are listening and really concerned, I think that it's so timely to have you on right now because we are hearing this. So I'd love to kind of talk through, we know it's a struggle. It is really, really tough. When you lose a job, you lose your income. It's very hard. How did you find that tenacity? Like, how did you find the will, the power to actually like pick yourself up and move on? And just like you said, you spent, Thanksgiving Day building district of clothing, your website. So it takes a lot. Like a lot goes in mentally. Like it's a lot. So talk us through like how did you find that power to actually pick up and move on?
Yeah, I'm very much a spiritual person. I find all of my strength from my faith as well as my family, my friends. Um, and then I think also my bills, they were a great reminder that I didn't have the I didn't have the opportunity to just kind of sit on my tush and do nothing. I know this is now a word that's just been overly and overly used, pivot, but it was very clear to me that I had to do something else. Um, I like to live a certain way. I like nice things. I like to eat a certain way, as a woman. And at that time, living in New York City, I needed to be safe in my home as well. And so I didn't, in that moment, I did not get too sad or depressed. I just felt inspired to continue moving forward. And again, I think that really is just driven through my faith and my I guess like my personal board of advisors and loved ones, um, who, I think one of the things to keep in mind, while you are figuring out what it is that drives your purpose and what your intention is and who helps you move forward and what it is that helps you move forward. It's also important that you know who is in your community that will also help you continue to move forward and will lift you up during those tough times. And this is undoubtedly a tough time. We are in whatever phase of this pandemic that you are willing to accept. And it's very much a roller coaster. And I think that as women, especially women in business or women who are aspiring to get into business, that's one of the things that you have to become most comfortable with is the unknown and become most comfortable with the highs and the lows. As a creative person, we creative people generally feel the highs and the lows a little bit differently. I think we feel them a bit more intensive than maybe some more analytical folks. Um, And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's what allows us to be as creative as we are because we're able to pull from those highs and lows. But it's really very important that you find what works for you best so that you can find comfort and be able to continue moving forward during, um, find the middle ground so that you can find the road that will allow you to continue moving forward through those storms. Um, I also think that it is important for women, for all people, for all humans, but definitely for women to know that, um, you don't have to have everything in play. You don't have to have $100,000. You don't even have to have $5,000. You can have an idea and you can take 5 minutes in the shower and start thinking about this. And every week, add another minute. Every week, add another 5 minutes. Every week, add a bit more time to allow yourself to kind of work these things through. Write them down, even if you're writing them on the shower door. That I've done that before. I actually still do that. Um, it's just important that you allow yourself to be the vessel through whatever these ideas are coming through, and you realize, you drop the imposter syndrome, and you realize that you have the ability to bring that idea to fruition. I strongly believe that if something comes to us, it's because we have the ability to grow it, to nurture it into whatever it's supposed to be for the next person to pick up and continue moving it forward.
Oh my gosh, I just got like chills. I love that. I think that I have never heard it put that way. That's like it's so awesome to hear it that way because yes, you may not be able to like bring it the entire way to fruition, but perhaps, it came to you for a reason. So that's so awesome to hear that. And just because you can't carry it through doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it as well, right? Like you said, someone else can pick it up and run with it.
Or someone else could just get inspiration from seeing you get started. Not everything is meant to have an ending. Not everything is meant to be completed, in my opinion. And so, if you have an idea, it could just be you understanding and learning the practice of getting started and moving forward and learning more about yourself so that the next time, something comes to you for you to move forward with, you have a better understanding of who you are and how you work.
Exactly, and that past experience for sure. Um, so talk to us about the fact that so you picked up, you moved from New York, you went to Washington, you have District of Clothing going at this time. But then you also have the design company too. So that's where you're saying you had your like smaller clients that you're working with, and that was going well. But then you had this this spending freeze. So talk us through. So at that moment in your journey, what did you do next? So you have District of Clothing going on, but then this freeze happens. What happened? What's next for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think initially I did freak out. I'll be honest. The spending freeze happened, and I was like, okay, now what? Um, so I did have a quick panic moment. But again, at this time, I was working in a woman-owned and business, woman and business-owned, excuse me, uh, co-working place, excuse me, and I was surrounded by women who had gone through these things in the past. I was surrounded by women who were providing resources, they were providing support. And so we had the masterminds, we had the um, podcast listening, like group sessions where we would listen to podcasts. And I was able to just, take some time and have some one on ones with some friends who were going through similar situations or maybe had already done so, and colleagues for them to introduce me to. They were introducing me to other folks to get more client work, which was great. And then, you know, a week later, you're feeling confident to move forward. But then it's still like, okay, now what? At that time, I was still very much focused on making sure that some of my other client work was moving forward and also letting them know that I had much more time available to work on other projects, which is what allowed me to expand my portfolio quite a bit. I did quite a bit of branding and revamping in terms of what my service offering was and how I shared that with folks. That was a great time to do that as well. And I just sort of dug in deep, and I had this idea that kept coming back to me that it was sort of haunting me. I couldn't let it go. And that's what we now know as the Dreamer Doer item through the district clothing collection. I started putting pen to pad, and it sounds like I was making these big leaps, but really I was just taking small steps every day. I also was pausing. I was also sitting still. I was also, like re-educating myself, having conversations with folks. Um, sometimes God gives you just a moment to just like sit down and to breathe so that you can sit down and breathe and kind of think things through. And I used that time to do that between, let's say, June, July of 2014 and November 2014. And that continuously happens. There was another time when, the world made us stop. There was this little tiny virus that you might have heard of, that, that made everyone stop. It was a group pause for sure. And once again, I had kicked off 2020 with all of these great ideas, all of these goals. We had just celebrated another anniversary. And here I was thinking I was going to do this new collection and I was going to have some photo shoots and I had a little bit of money in my pocket and I was going to do X, Y, and Z. And I can remember, you know, if I were to just like kind of go back to March, I can remember, let's say March 2020, excuse me. Let's just say March 1, I had 100% of my clients on board. By March 10th, it was 25%. By March 15th, it was down to like 75% of my clients were gone. And everyone, again, had kind of gone on a spending freeze, and we were all terrified and frightened. I was blessed to have something to pivot to. And I pivoted toward productivity in that moment because I needed to be productive so that I wasn't so freaked out about what I was seeing on the news. And I pivoted toward productivity through District of Clothing, and really essentially using our platform that we currently had, which was maybe like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10,000. I'm not sure how many followers we had at that time on social media. But, if you can go back to March 2020, it was, flatten the curve, hashtag flatten the curve, hashtag wash your hands. And so we were just using the platform that we had as a way to disseminate information that would be helpful for folks at that time during the pandemic.
Mhm.
I'm sorry if that answer was too long.
Oh my God, never. No, that's good. That's what we're here. We're here to dive into it. So you kind of like brought it back full circle. All right, not full circle, but you brought it back. um, so District of Clothing, I feel like you can tell just from this interview, like I can tell you have a faith. Like there's a lot of, faith there. And District of Clothing, I feel like has a lot of like social justice. I feel like you're really giving back to communities and things like that. And I would love to deep dive into that as a pivot, we'll say. But then also the other way you brought it back was talking about when you first started the interview, you talked about, having multiple income streams. So, you had your design, you started with District of Clothing.
No, I started with Dionna Dorsey Design.
Oh, design. Okay, got it. And then you went to District of Clothing and then that's continued. Got it. Okay, I thought it was the other way. So yeah, so talk to us about District of Clothing. I think it is the reason I had reached out to you originally is because I love the mission that you're on with that brand. And I think it's just fabulous. There's so many uh causes that you kind of like work to bringing to the forefront and really shining the light on. So talk to us about that because it's not just a clothing brand, like it stands for something. And I'd love to just deep dive and explore that with you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first was thinking about District of Clothing, I knew I needed something to help out with the rough months, but I also knew that I was still very much in a place of privilege to be able to pivot and to create something. But I wanted to be able to give back to to the city, Washington, D.C., to the people, family, and friends, and to the many different things that inspire me. I wanted to also just sort of put some positivity back into the world. And so we are um, a tiny brand that I think has, really been focused since day one on amplifying the truth, on sharing messages of progression, sharing messages of positivity, sharing messages of inspiring action versus sitting on the sidelines. And I think, honestly, a lot of our messaging had been the same since our early days in 2014, in 2015. But we sort of met the moment, which is what you is every designer's dream, or creative's dream, in 2020. And so if you can think back to the awful things that were happening in 2020 that were obviously happening prior to that, but again, everyone was on pause and everyone was able to like vividly see, without any sort of distraction, what was consistently happening. So our Dreamer Doer series, our partnership with Planned Parenthood, with the Stand with Black Women, our Trust Black Women, our Do Not Touch the Artwork items, our Changemaker Making Change. You would see folks protesting and marching wearing our apparel. You would see folks choosing to pick up their children, you know, I guess this is post pandemic, but you were seeing people choosing to like pick up their children from school wearing their shirts, wearing our shirts, or going to vote wearing our items. Um, and the goal really was just to inspire action and to create community. And so, especially during the pandemic, quite a few people were um, wearing our shirts because it was such a tough and challenging time, but we also had to work through it. And so you might not always be able to say what you're feeling when you're on a Zoom call, but you can wear a shirt that says Changemaker Making Change, or Trust Black Women, or Dreamer Doer, or Do Not Touch the Artwork, or Stand with Black Women. And people know how you feel about something. Our brand's goal is to just inspire action, to support self love, and to help build community through t-shirts. It's not the t-shirt, it's the person wearing it. We like to say that our clothes won't change the world, but the people wearing them are. And that they will. And I firmly believe that. We have a beautiful community of like-minded individuals and humans who just want to um, make the world a better place. And they're not necessarily doing that with these outlandish, wild um, plans and goals. Some people are, and they are people that we might know by name, yes. But it's also everyday humans who are just choosing to do the right thing, who are just choosing to, use one less plastic bottle a day, or to use one more sustainable um, um, mug over buying more bottled water. It's just the tiniest of things. And so we just want to be able to build community um, through that and help people feel good. Help people feel good, help people feel confident, um, and to, I don't know if people feel the same way about social media as they did when we first started, but it would be great. It was such an amazing feeling to go on social media and to see someone wearing a District of Clothing shirt. And they weren't necessarily just talking about the shirt, they were talking about what the shirt inspired them to do, or why someone would gifted them this particular item because they were doing X, Y, and Z in their community. That's what I love most about District of Clothing, is that we are a growing, tiny, but mighty community of folks who want to make the world a better place, and who believe in connecting with others to help them do the same.
Yeah, definitely. And I resonate so well with that messaging around it's just taking tiny steps and doing little things, and all the little things add up. And with so many people doing little things, like change will happen for sure. It's like the little pebble that continues to like, or little grain of sand that continues to like build. So I love that. And so that brings us like I feel like you just like bring yourself into the next bullet point that I want to talk about, which is like perfect. You're a great segue that way. Um, but there's also this like inclusivity as well, which also brings us to Creative Ladder. You know, this podcast like was born because I want to help women, step into their leadership roles and really do what it is that they want to do, whether it's in business that they own and run, or a corporation that they're working for. And I feel like Creative Ladder is, bringing that inclusivity together as well in a different way, but it feels like just so connected. So talk to us about Creative Ladder and the idea behind it and how it all got started and where you're at today.
For sure. So excited. Thank you. Creative Ladder, we've actually been working on this since the summer of 2020, since August of 2020. I was brought into the fold a little bit later in November. Um, so we are actually stepping into, in the next couple of weeks into our second year of working on Creative Ladder, which is so exciting to think and to now be here where we've now launched, and we're excited to be able to share much more about what we plan to do. But essentially, our goal is to connect, find, elevate, and support an inclusive new generation of creative individuals across various creative industries. And we are so excited to be able to work with high school students to let them know that these jobs exist. We're so excited to work with college students to help them have one-on-one access with folks so that they can understand what's expected and what the trajectory is of these various jobs. And again, even to help them know that certain jobs exist, or that they also exist in different industries. We're excited to be able to work alongside and to upskill young professionals 3 to 6 years into their career, and to give them community, to give them um, access to other people who, come from various different backgrounds, and access to mentors that maybe look like them, come from similar backgrounds with them. Um, but for all of this to have a perspective for people of color, people from various different backgrounds, LGBTQIA plus backgrounds as well, or, you know, to just see someone who looks like you or comes from a similar background to you, like seeing is believing, representation matters. And so even just being able to connect with someone on a human level helps you see like, oh, I can get there. I might be here today, but yes, I could be a CMO. I could even be a CEO. I can even own a business. We just want to help elevate a new inclusive generation. And I think, the goal here is just to let everyone know that there's not a talent deficit, that is an opportunity deficit. We have incredibly talented young people who will be good in various different creative industries once they've matriculated from high school. And also young people who are doing amazing work right now. We can connect them so that they can have communities, we can elevate them, we can upskill them, and we can help make creative careers more accessible to all people, from all backgrounds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like seeing is believing that you can also do it. And then I think that like just helping people understand that there is opportunity out there for them, right? It's the same thing in my on my end that I'm trying to do is that we may not see it because it's not that much, but it's out there. And you find the right people and the right mentors, you can really, really get to where it is that you want to go. So that is super, super exciting. And I feel like, at the end of the day, people see you, they see what you've done. They're like, oh my gosh, she's, working with Ryan Reynolds. And they think it's such that's the end goal. That's the like big end result. But listening to you today talk about your journey and the ups and downs that you've gone through to get to this point is exactly what we want to expose and for people to experience and understand that it's not just a straight line. It's not linear. It's not going to be easy every day. There's a lot of struggles, lots of ups and downs. Yeah. So, really, really appreciate your time today, Dionna, and helping and talking us through and sharing your journey and just being so transparent about it. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll have to have you on here. I can't believe it's like almost 2 years for Creative Ladder already.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on it behind the scenes and building on it for almost 2 years. We launched in, excuse me, we announced our launch in June of 2021. No, 2022.
22, right? Yeah, I know. I'm like, what year is it?
2022. Yeah, excuse me, forgive me. And we're excited to be launching a couple of things in these next couple of months. So
Yeah, but there you go, right? 2 years in the working before you got to launch this year in almost 2 years, right? In 2022, June. So there's a lot goes into businesses and planning and things like that. So again, another like tidbit for people paying attention and listening. So Deanna, this podcast is named Born to Be. So tell us, what were you born to be?
oh gosh. I was definitely born to be a creative. I believe I was born to provide a service to my community and also to be of service to my community.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much, Deanna. We'll have to have you on again in
I would love
a
that.
little bit. So we'll hear what else you're up to that you can't really dish out right now, but we'll we'll have you back so we can hear some more and dive into, what has happened in the last little bit.
I'd love that. Thank you so much, Sam.
Of course. Thank you so much. This was great. Have a good
Thank
one.
you. You
You're
too. Bye
welcome.
bye.
Bye.